Hello and welcome to Guyanese Swag, where we bring you interviews from Guyanese leaders across the diaspora who are shakers and movers in their field getting things done. And today is no different. We have an award-winning, exceptional, and I don't use that word lightly because she has social proof to prove it. She is a holistic health pharmacist who has dedicated 15 years of her career giving her clients nothing but the best of holistic healthcare. Her name is Dr. Sue Ojageer. Dr. Sue, let's get into this interview. What part of Guyana are you from?
Nice to meet you. I'm originally from Berbice, Guyana.
So how long have you been here in the United States?
I've been here close to 30 years. I spent about 20 years in New York. And it's funny, I still consider that like my hometown, living there for so long, but now I'm in Texas, in Dallas, Texas.
Guyana, New York, Texas. That is some really dynamic changes. Talk to us about that change. What was it like let's start with from Guyana to New York. Fill us in on that period.
So let's see. I left Guyana when I was about 6 years old. So I don't have too much memory of back home, but I have very vague memories about, our house, our yard, just like the community and how it was very welcoming and just so natural and wonderful and beautiful. That's what I remember from stories and just some vague memories. And left mainly for all reasons I think what most of our parents did, for coming to America for a better life and giving us, that opportunity, the American dream. And I'm an only child. I'm an only daughter. My parents had me when they're like very late in life. So it was just basically starting new for them, starting life brand new in a whole different country and just basically giving me the opportunities of living the American dream. So we moved to America. We lived in New York, and that's where I see a lot of opportunities for change and seeing how the community was able to change from what I remember growing up as a child, seeing where it is now. I think it changed drastically, and there's so much room for lots of improvement and just getting our community better health and just bringing them to understand that there's so many ways that they could practice good health and take care of themselves and just live at the fullest. Because now, just putting them first and just understanding that we're so unique and so diverse that we don't fall into the cookie cutter shape of everyone else that we see healthcare as. And that's what I focus on. I focus on our individuality and taking care of my patients based on their uniqueness, because we're not like everyone else. We're so different.
I have so many questions for you, but I'm going to try to pace myself so that I'm not overwhelming you. What was the inspiration for you to get into holistic healthcare?
So I'm a pharmacist by practice. I've worked in retail, my big box retail chain for about 14, 15 years of my career. And there I saw the struggles that every nationality, every patient goes through with like back and forth with medicines. Like, is this the right one for me? Like all the switching, all the doctors are changing back and forth. It's, not the right fit. They're not getting results. Lots of opportunity there that were missed, or just sometimes patients give up because it is a lot of work to get you on the right medicine. And not a lot of people understand that it's not just a one size fits all healthcare. It has to be individualized because we're all different. We're going to react to medicines differently, and we're going to produce a different result because we're all so different. So I decided to step out of that. I love what I did. I mean, I practiced and I loved it for 14 years, but it was a hard choice for me to, step away from the comfort of, practicing there and create a business where I focus on what I said before about the individualities of our patients. So I work with physicians, and collaboratively, we help our patients get the right medicine using their genetics. So we look at their genetics, and based on how the reports come back, we're able to see what medicines will work best, depending on how they metabolize medications. And there we have their therapies formed that way.
What is the major difference between a traditional pharmacist and a holistic pharmacist?
So there's pharmacists in wide variety of practices. There's, I recently published a coloring book that shows about 50 different specialties that pharmacists could practice in. So there's many different ways that we could provide care, but traditionally there's the retail pharmacist, there's a hospital pharmacist, there's a couple other ones too that we're not too familiar with, but those are the main ones that we always see in the public facing eye. So a functional pharmacist or holistic pharmacist would try to treat the patient and get to the root cause of the illness, not just throw medications on, hoping that something would work. We try to get to the root cause of the disease state of the illness and treating that, because sometimes not all disease states require medicine. As much as I am a pharmacist, I don't always require or present an option of medicine to my patients. Sometimes it's lifestyle modifications that work best. So it's getting to the root cause of the illness.
You literally just made my brain go like this. Question. So.
I love it. I love it though, because when you say this to someone, it sparks that interest. And that's the exact reason I love these responses, because it's honestly, it's true. And not many people are aware of that. And when you explain this very simple but complex statement, it's light bulbs should go off and they should say, maybe I was doing it I was used to hearing it one way. Maybe I should consider doing something different. And overall, we try to do it this way because you're the main person that we want to take care of, the patient, and we want to make sure that we're giving the best care possible to them.
So walk us through this. Let's go back for a moment. So you migrated from Guyana, you're 6 years old. What was that change like for you, being 6 years old in a new place and leaving basically everything and everybody you know behind? What was that change like?
It was, looking back at it now, and thinking of how my childhood was growing up, I would say it was rough. It was very, very, we had bare bones at minimum, no luxuries, none of the fancy things that we hear about nowadays, but not a day, I would say, goes by. And it's so interesting. I would ever think that was a struggle. It was what made me get to where I am today. And I don't think I was ever short for anything. I had the best of everything, I would say, growing up. And even though it's the smallest things, and that's what you have to learn to appreciate, the smallest things that could mean so much. It doesn't have to be monetary, but I felt like that's how my childhood was personally. Being an only child, I just had the attention was on me always. My parents always focused on making sure I got an education. That was the biggest thing. They'll do anything to make sure that was something that I had to accomplish and just make sure I get. So they worked, very hard jobs. They worked, security guards. My mom was a home health aide, and they worked alternating schedules, 24 hours. Sometimes I would hardly see them, but thinking back at it now with my kids, you realize how many sacrifices they made just to have those opportunities and to be able to get me to where I am today. So it is, thinking about it, it's difficult, but I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't because of that. And very grateful for all of those amazing things.
As a child growing up and now looking back at it, seeing the sacrifices that your parents made and seeing that alternate schedule happening and the coming and going as you referenced, looking back at that now, do you feel like the sacrifice was worth it to leave everything and then to come here and have to start over from the ground up and to see your parents basically as adults go back into the form of a child, learning a new environment, learning new culture, not new language, but new terminologies to the language that they already knew. What was the emotions like for you? And then the sacrifice in and of itself, do you feel like it was worth it?
Oh gosh, it was 100% worth it, I would say, because they got to grow up with me in a way, because I would teach them things. I would, it's funny, they didn't go to school. So they always joke and say, I never went to school, but I went to school with you. They followed me along the whole process. Whenever I would do something at school, I would, they would read along with me. I would show them things, and they honestly are very sharp with the way they picked up things. And it's not easy learning something when you're in your 50s, almost 60s, starting a whole new life and, leaving back everything that you had that you called home and starting brand new. So that's extremely difficult. Like we have like kids who are struggling, or teenagers who are struggling to learn a concept, but imagine doing it when you know something one way your whole life, but imagine doing that, X amount of years later. So I would say it's been a fun journey, extremely. We had our difficulties. There were some days when, we barely were able to make like payments on the rent, and, lots of moving around. And I didn't understand like what was going on at that time because I was younger, but they barely were able to make payments because it was always me. They were focusing on making sure that I was taken care of school-wise, with like getting my tuition paid and like whatever necessities I needed to make sure I was comfortable. But then obviously the gratitude is definitely there because those are things that you can never repay.
So fast forward, now we're an adult, go off to college, and parents has made endless sacrifices, some we can't even remember. And now we're in college. Talk to me about that journey in college, onto becoming a pharmacist, that pathway.
So I went to St. John's and I did my pharmacy degree. I received it there. And that wasn't much of an option. I always knew that I always wanted to do something in healthcare. And seeing and being in front of seeing the front-facing pharmacists in our community, I know that that was a choice that I wanted to do because I wanted to help people. I wanted to be able to be the first response that people would be able to, first line of response that I could provide that care for our patients in our community. So it was never a struggle and getting to where and deciding that was the option for me, which made it a lot easier in deciding that. So, and St. John's is right in our backyard, so it was very close. It just felt like the right thing to do too. With everything, I wanted to be close to home. I wanted, like traditionally to go to a school that was very close. And I finished my years there. It was a 6-year program. And once I graduated, I went straight into retail. That's where I worked for the 14 years as a retail pharmacist. And honestly, like we were talking before, although that there were struggles in working at retail, I absolutely loved it. I met so many different patients and I'm still in contact with them, like the ones in New York and like all the different stores. Like we kept such a good bond and we were able to have that connection and just be yourself, just like give advice like how I would give like my loved one. Like you're no different than any person that I truly care about. So that's how I treat all my patients. I want to make sure you get the best care and treat them like people and human. And people are very receptive. They know when you're faking it or you're not being real. So every person, every interaction I have, I try to do my best to make that the most important. So fast forward, we moved to Texas. It was honestly cost of living and it was getting very difficult to raise a family in New York. So decided to step back and just move down to Texas in a different area. And same practice. It was it started off a little bit slower down here because it was not as busy, but now it's honestly, I think it's busier than New York. But I recently won a national award for being a pharmacy influencer, and there my customers voted in for the care I provided. So that's how I guess the influencing part of my career started, where I won that national award, and a lot more opportunities started to open up where I was getting different projects and starting more of the social media aspect of pharmacy or healthcare.
You took us right into where I wanted to go next. So let's talk about that. Because you mentioned a couple different things. One that I think makes you stand out, not only as a pharmacist, but as a person. Because typically when you go into healthcare places, whether it's a traditional like retail box store or even just a hospital, it's like there are these protocols like, oh, you can't get too close to the patient or don't be personal. But the approach that you took of being personal and making the people feel like persons and not like a number that you have to give service to, I think definitely makes you stand out, not only as a service provider, but also as a human being. So Definitely kudos to that. And obviously the award it's definitely well designated. So talk to us about now you're in the social media space and there go another change, not just change in locations, but now you're learning something new, this new dynamic in social media. What has that been like?
So that was a complete surprise to myself because I was never like this. Never, never, never. I was always the quiet one, the family. Like you could barely hear me. You could see me, but I was the one hiding in the back of the classrooms. I tell the kids this all the time. Like I was just like you. Like don't be afraid, or like, you're gonna have wrong answers. Just raise your hand. Trust me. It doesn't matter now. Because I was the one who was always so quiet. And I did a complete change in my life. I'm like, you know what? If I'm able to use my voice or use what I'm doing, my platform to help someone, why not? This is my profession. I absolutely love being a pharmacist. I love what I do. So I'm going to use that to help people in a whole different way because everything is on social media. Everything is so technology driven. Like not everyone is going to have a pharmacist in front of them. Not everyone is going to have that person to talk to them. It's hard to do it behind a drive-through window. It's hard to do it like everything's in the mail now, right? We're getting our prescriptions in the mail. So not everyone has that opportunity. So we have to pivot. We have to make changes and be able to have that flexibility with the way we practice.
I love it. Before I go into my next question, we're just going to take a really quick break for a message from today's sponsor, and we will be right back.
Today's interview is brought to you by the Guyanese Swag Business Directory, a comprehensive listing of Guyanese-owned businesses across the diaspora. Visit GuyaneseSwag.com to learn more.
Hello and welcome back, everyone. We're here with Dr. Sue Ojageer. Sorry, I promised to not butcher her name, and I did. I'm sorry about that. She is a phenomenal pharmacist, y'all. She has over 15 years of experience, and I don't want to delay this interview anymore, so we're just going to jump back into it. Dr. Sue, tell me about, you left off right about the part about social media. So my question for you in that regard is for the people who are now coming up and they look at the platform now and they look at what you're doing on social media, they're like, oh, she's doing really great, but they don't see obviously the blood, sweat, and tears that go in behind all of that beautifulness that happens on social media. So talk to us about that.
So entrepreneuring is a whole different beast because you don't have the comforts of corporate and the schedule that we have. The comfort, it does have its pros and cons. So it is for people. Some people love it, but entrepreneuring is a whole different animal and a whole different beast. And you have to be able to pivot and tackle it and make it your own because it could consume you. You have to be able to make your schedule. You have to be able to understand there's going to be failure as well as success. So that you have to be able to navigate and manage as well. So it's a whole different beast, but I absolutely love it for what it could create. And you could design it to be your own. It's your blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it. If you put whatever you put into anything in life, you get the returns. If you put 100%, you're going to get 100%. So I love it for that part.
I am a big advocate for entrepreneurship. I'm not biased to a 9-to-5, but I would say I'm biased to entrepreneurship just because I think that everyone should at least have the experience of knowing what it's like to be an entrepreneur before you make a decision that I want to be a lifelong 9-to-5 person. Not anything wrong or counting anything against that, but I think everyone should at least have the experience. So at least you're making an educated decision about what side of the fence you want to be on. Coming from a traditional corporate job and then moving into entrepreneurship, what were some of the stumbling blocks for you?
It's definitely being able to have your schedule, managing your schedule and your time, because entrepreneurship, you don't have a 9-to-5. It's 24/7 now. It's all on you. There's no breaks. If you take a break, you feel like you're doing something off of your time or your schedule. Like I could have been doing this, I could have been doing XYZ, but you have to have that balance because you're also, I have a big family. I have 5 kids. So I have to be able to manage that and still, not take away from their time with, spending family time. So scheduling is definitely one of the things I have to always make sure it's top priority in time.
Being someone who works on the front line, and we're not totally out of the green with COVID, but in some regard, we are out of the green with COVID. I mean, out of the red with COVID. Being somebody who worked on the front line, what was that like for you? And I'm interested for your family, having to manage a family of 5 plus a spouse, and a business and all these different aspects, but then also being required to be somebody on the front line of something that nobody knew what it was or how to deal with it. How did you navigate that?
You have to, every day there's a new challenge. You have to be able to understand that and tackle it.
That's okay. It's family thing.
Oh yes, it's so funny. Like most of the time when they hear me on the podcast, they know it's a fun one and how we're laughing and conversating, they have to make an appearance.
And they walked in right on cue when we were talking about the kids.
Right. They love it. So it's definitely, when you have you're in the front line, it was the beginning of COVID. Every day was like a different change or different protocol. We had so many, wear this, do this, wash your hands this amount of times. Like there was like so many changes. So you have to be able to, go with that and still be obligated to understanding to protect your patients and yourself. But you also have to provide care as well, because we are frontline workers. At that time, being in retail, when I was vaccinating, I had a duty to do. So I had to gear up and, gown up, mask up, everything, and just go at it.
Hats off to you. Indeed, hats off to you. Talk to us about the book. I'm interested about that. So please dig in and tell us all about the book.
When I hear the book or we talk about the book, I feel like that's the most funnest project I worked on. It was, and you know what it is? I think it's because the kids had so much involvement in it, and we did it all as a project and we worked on it together. So the whole concept of what the business is, and how I use genetic information or help people get the right medicine based off of their individuality and their uniqueness. That whole concept, I said, how can I make it simple where, not many adults know about it? It's a complex topic, but maybe if we explain it to the kids, because the kids hear me talking about it. When I say the word, what the study is, pharmacogenomics, they could say the word. And it's so common now where they hear me talk about it. It's just like, oh, it's using genetics to get the right medicine, or using that information to help you get your best care. So they know what that whole process is. I'm like, if these kids know about this, maybe it will be really good if other kids, and that way other families can know about it, start young, because our kids are our future. So it was Christmas last year. We were like coming up with Christmas gifts, wondering what we should do. And instead of like, doing the whole laundry list of all the toys and everything, we get tired of, like, let's work on a project together where we could all contribute to it. We're all gonna like have our say. So I'm like, let's have a children's book. Let's put this all into a children's book. So I went on Fiverr, got the illustrations. I came up with the story, the formatting. And I thought it was going to probably take like a year or 6 months. It was done like within 2 months. Wow. Surprisingly, everything was like done. And I went self-publishing through Amazon, which was extremely, extremely easy. And they were very helpful throughout the whole process. Went on Amazon, uploaded, and it took off. Like, it was so cool because like so many STEM organizations, the children's school, like so many other people were interested. I even think that it was like a target audience, because I was just mainly trying to do like a kids, like a fun health book, but it took a whole different spin. Now it's a STEM inspired children's book where it teaches like a concept about using science and getting through to the kids. So that has been an amazing journey.
And that is so amazing that it actually came full circle. So talk to me now about your children and them being involved and seeing them have a step up in a way that I guess you didn't have as a child, and now being able to give that to your children, which is every parent's dream.
It is. It's so interesting. And I'm like, what made me interested or want to do like a children's book? Because I'm not a writer. I'm not like anything in the background as a writer. So I remember when I was younger, my dad and my mom, they used to order these health books. Like, how we used to have their Encyclopedia Britannica, like the subscription. Well, we had this, it was called the Health Handbook. And in this book, it had like every single disease state, and it has like index cards. And throughout the whole book, it just explains like every disease state. It gives you pictures. It tells you like very easy, basic how to treat it, like what do you need to do, like precautions and things like that. And I'm thinking back to this, I'm like, what? Like, why was I interested in that? Like, why was that so important at that time? But I love collecting that. And when it comes in the mail, I would put into the binder and like have it organized. I have like about 5 of these like stacks of binders. And the kids will like go through it and just like look at the pictures. It's mainly like pictures because it's still teaching them something, but it has like the bright, colorful pictures. And I'm like, I wonder if that was like a subliminal message that I had when I was younger, that I was always in front of these type of books or type of things that made me want to do something like this now that I'm older. And it's funny, like we do something or we're exposed to something when we're younger and it leaves an impression now when we're adults. And, you know, hopefully that I could do the same for other generations, all the little ones now. They see something that seems so like interesting, maybe they'll take it and God knows what they'll do with it. So that's my hope for like every child out there. They'll be inspired by something very, very, you know, what we think is so complex, and they'll take it and make it the next discovery later on down the years.
Wow, you are literally full of surprises. I'm like, because as a kid, I'm like, I liked reading, but I didn't like reading things that wasn't of interest to me. But the way that you broke it down, it's like each of us had our own pathway, and listening to you, it's like I could naturally see how the healthcare and pharmacy, because for me, I don't like blood. I don't like being in that environment. It's like, get me away from this. And then for you, it's like, oh, I had these books growing up, and then my parents were in the medical field. And so watching, like listening to that ramp up happening to now becoming full circle Dr. Seuss.
Isn't that amazing? Because we see something and it triggers something in us. And, you know, it was always about, you know, getting education. That's always something I always remember growing up. That was the most important thing. And, you know, you have to make it fun. Or it's like now with our new generation, if you say that, it's just like, ooh, like that's all I hear. Like, I have to make it interesting. You have to make it fun and exciting. So there's a lot of things out there that we could give to the little ones that'll inspire them to take this whole, you know, revolutionize the way we think now, because it's not easy to get an education. I'll hear that and like, okay, what does that mean? You have to explain it, or you have to further into it. So it's how you present it, for sure.
Absolutely. From where we sit today with technology in the healthcare system and everything that's happening, and then like, for example, we're living here in the States, and then obviously technology wise, we're further ahead than other countries. And then looking back at Guyana, that's now making that turn into technology, and they're in many ways bridging that gap. What would you say to those looking at this video and might have an interest in migrating from Guyana to another country, whether it be for personal or career choices? What would you say to them? And the follow-up question to that is for those interested in getting into the medical field, what would you say to them as well?
A dream and you believe that you could do it, definitely go for it, because you're your biggest advocate. And once you take it and you grow it and you believe in yourself, it'll be so amazing. It'll blossom to something that it's amazing, for sure. And, you know, you said it so perfectly too. Now that we're seeing that how the disparities, and like, we always think of Guyana struggling or being still third world, or being, you know, in the later, they're not up to par with technology, but it's changed quite a lot. I mean, I'm looking at pictures, I'm seeing like how it looks there now. I'm like, this is not the way I remember hearing about it. So we have a lot of room for growth, and I would love to see a lot more of our own people doing so many amazing things. I want to hear like the next new thing being discovered. I want to hear more of our nationality being out there.
I love it. And my last and final question for you, for those who want to connect with you, who want to get involved with the amazing work that you're doing, how could they connect and collaborate with you?
Of course, I love it. So I'm online on all the social media platforms. Main site would be my website, pharmasou.com. Website, email, everything is out there for information. It's info@pharmasue.com, and all the social media platforms is under Pharmasue, PHARMASUE.
Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you sharing your time with us. You guys heard this woman. She's amazing. I definitely urge you to go and check out her work. She's doing amazing things. Buy her book. Don't reach out for free stuff. Buy her book. Support the work she's doing because it's amazing and it's definitely changing the next generation. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. We appreciate you being a part of the Guyanese Swag mission. If you've not already done so, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up and drop us a comment so we know how this video has inspired you. And while you're down there in the description, go ahead and click the link to connect with Dr. Sue and support her phenomenal work. Enjoy the rest of your day and thank you for being phenomenal. Peace.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and hit that notification bell.